Spinifex Zoo is slowly increasing its animal roster, and we are planning to go even further. Our 3 koalas are now extremely comfortable in their new enclosure and are having no issues. Due to them spending too much time on the ground, they are a lot more active, making them more fun to view and be around. As we started up from the trees, we have now headed towards the coast with our blue fairy penguins that we recently rescued from Surfers Paradise. Due to them being too far upshore, we are unable to release them back into the wild, so we brought them here to stay. They have been living at the zoo for just over a week now, and they definitely enjoy it a lot. With them having a great beach to chill in, and a big water area to swim, they've definitely got everything they need. In this enclosure, we've got 3 females and 3 males. Blueberry is one of our females. She is less likely to be found in the water and usually is up on the beach playing with enrichment, which is fun to watch. Here we have Cora. During the rescue mission, she was the hardest to rescue as she is a really fast swimmer. She is often seen swimming laps of the water, and she is definitely the fastest in the colony. Meet Skylar. He is the smallest out of the 3, and is most curious. She enjoys exploring the enclosure and is often first to see what her keepers are up to in their enclosure. Pip also enjoys swimming just like Cora, but he enjoys swimming in the surface of the water instead of under the water. Nimbus enjoys spending his time swimming and walking around the rocks. His favourite place to chill is the small rock island in the middle of the enclosure. Then here we have Bluebell. Bluebell is a much more relaxed penguin. He isn't too hyper and usually chills around the backstage on hot days. Yes, he can still be found swimming to cool off as well, but he isn't as active as his colony members. The 6 blue fairy penguins seem to be enjoying their enclosure, and the koalas don't seem to be bothered by their new neighbours. Sophie Mormon is enjoying the amount of new animals we are getting to house at the zoo, and Cooper Lewis is enjoying the amazing habitats he gets to help build. It's always a great time when a zoo is growing, and seeing what direction it's going to head next is always something to look forward to. And now we've got to plan for our next enclosure, and it was not who I was expecting. Spinifex Zoo has been starting to clear out an area for a new enclosure, whether that be for the kangaroos, dingoes, or maybe even emus. But in late notice we got a call from a farmer, and it was not what we expected. A farmer around Springdale, South Queensland, has been coming out to crops missing or half eaten on his farm for months now, but it has gotten colder and has been getting out of hand. He has called us to try and find who or what has been causing these missing crops, and to, and I quote, get rid of it. So Julian Fraser has gone over there and placed camera traps around his farm to find out who is responsible for this. And a few days later, we got movement on the camera trap. When reviewing the footage, we think we found the culprit. This male wombat seems to be the one foraging and eating this farmer's crops, and now that we've found him, we will take him away from this area and to the Gold Coast Wildlife Shelter for quarantine. We made sure to check up on the wombat for any injuries and realised he was infested with ticks, so the vets made sure to remove them all. The vets saw that he seemed a little stressed due to the change in habitat, so we are making sure no one goes into the enclosure for now, to make sure that he can warm up to this new environment. While we are here, the Gold Coast Wildlife Shelter has kindly decided to transfer some of their vets to help at Spinifex Zoo. I think it's time to start constructing the enclosure. In this episode, I want to build a vet right next to the gift shop, and across from that is where I want to build the wombat enclosure. If you are enjoying this series and want to support this channel, please consider subscribing, and also don't forget to like and comment, even if it's something small like a name suggestion, as it really helps push these videos out to more people. Let's meet the 3rd animal to call Spinifex Zoo home, the wombat. The Zoopedia shows that the wombat is at least concerned with the population in the wild unknown. On this page, we only need to see how much land we need for one wombat, and it shows we need about 225 square meters, and they don't need any climbing, water, or deep diving requirements, so that should be pretty easy to do. On this page, it shows that wombats are a solitary animal, having from 1 to 2 in a group. Luckily, we are only having 1 so far. Here is where we see all the enrichment the wombat can use, and it doesn't seem to be much we are unfamiliar with, so we don't have to worry. And on the final page, it shows that the wombat can't share a habitat with any other animals, but we weren't planning on doing that anyway. Right next to the gift shop is where I want the vet to be. We need to begin by placing the vet building down right next to the gift shop, and then using the walls we used for the gift shop to blend it in with the building. After the walls are complete, I will add the roof and then come through with wall and roof trims to add some more details. The vet building is looking pretty nice and it blends in with the gift shop building nicely. I now feel like we should add a planter behind it for privacy, as we don't want people walking past and looking in. To begin with the planter, we need to start off by adding the retaining wall for the mulch to go in. After that, I added some buffalo grass around to add some greenery, and then we added some cresseta bushes and flowers to add some more colour to this area. Once that is done, I added a little tree, and now the planter is done, and I feel like it does a pretty good job by letting the vets have some privacy while looking after our animals. It is now time to begin on the Wombat's enclosure. I want to begin by starting off with his indoor portion of the enclosure, where this is where he will sleep, as Wombats are technically nocturnal. Once I've done the outline of this area, I want to locate where the backstage will be. So I will add walls to separate it and a door for the Wombat to go through. And to finish off the outlining of the building, I will add the roof. I want to make one bit of the roof higher than the other, and change up the roof so that it doesn't look so repetitive and to add more detail. And this is how it's looking so far. Not the greatest, but it works for now. We will detail it up right now. First off, I want to make the wall not look so much like a box of concrete, so I will be making the bottom of the wall wooden. To make it look less repetitive, I want to rotate the wooden beam a little bit to change up the look of the wall. Now that that is done, I want to begin on where the window will be, by adding a few wooden beams as structure for the windows. Once that has been placed all around, I will start adding the windows for the viewing area. To not make the windows look so boring and unrealistic, I'm adding a few metal beams around to act as connection points for where the two windows connect, and to where the windows will connect to the wall. A bit of footage decided not to work properly, but all I really did was add decals, so it doesn't really matter too much. But while we are here, I decided to add the wooden bits of the wall to this wall here, and then I want to make a small area where staff can go through for privacy while entering the Wombat's enclosure. We all know they will also use this area for storage, so I'm adding these here too. And now the last few finishing touches before this area is basically complete. And now this looks so much better than just a box of concrete, and it will definitely make a great first impression of this zoo. To get it over and done with, I want to add rocks and plants into the indoor section. To begin this process, I'll start off by adding these stalagmite rocks to use as a mud wall, as I want to make this area look sort of like a den for the wombats. After the stalagmites are completely covering the back wall, I will come through and start adding some plants along the mud wall. I'm not adding too much, I'm just adding a few smaller plants, some creosote bushes and ivy to add some colour variation to the walls. These plants will act as plants that you will usually see growing inside of rock crevices. The mud wall is now complete, and it's looking pretty good, but now it's time to add more plants. I want to add a few smaller rocks, such as pebbles, to make this area seem even more like a wombat den, and not just an indoor area of the enclosure. I will be placing these all around the indoor section, and then I will begin to add some small plants. This area can't have any big plants though, as there is not enough room, and no wombat den is going to have huge plants in it. So all I've added is a few bushes, grass species, and the top of tree saplings. And this is how it's looking. I honestly quite like how it looks, and I'm sure our wombat is going to love his indoor portion of his enclosure. The view from the guest perspective is also really nice, and you can see all the variations of rocks and plants we used. The indoor portion of the wombat's enclosure is complete, and now it's time to start working on the outdoor portion. Starting with the fence, I'm going to be using plaster pieces as a fence barrier, but this will only be used at the start, middle, and end of the barrier. In between these sections, I'm going to be using glass panels instead, so that children that can't see over the walls can still have a view of the wombat and also have an even closer view. Now that we've reached the middle of the barrier, we will make a bit of the barrier stick up. This is where we'll have information about wombats, like their conservation status and habitat range, which I will place on the screen I just added here. I'm now back to adding glass, as there will be 2 sections on the barrier where you will be able to view the wombats up close. Time for the last finishing touches of this barrier. The barrier of this enclosure isn't quite complete just yet, but the viewing section is looking really good. Now let's continue on the back of the enclosure, where we will add the mud wall. Since I'm already using the mud wall pieces, I decided to quickly add it to the elevated parts of the enclosure for some diversity in the terrain. Later on, I'm going to be adding some smaller rocks around this area as well. This shouldn't take too long, as I am just using a few different types of the mud wall to use it as the barrier for the back of the enclosure. While placing the mud wall, I'm making sure to add a little bit of a curve around, as I want the wombat to have as much space as possible so he has plenty of room to run around in. This enclosure is coming together nicely, and I am happy with how it looks. But we can't stop yet, as we still have 3 things to do before the wombat can be let out of quarantine. One out of the 3 things we need to do is the rocks in the enclosure. I decided to lower the terrain for a little watering hole, and add some rocks around it to make it seem like a little flooded area inside of rock crevices. After that, I wanted to add some nettle around, as usually in areas where water is, plants are able to grow in small areas of the rocks. Finally, I will add some of these pebbles around the enclosure, usually where the wombat barely goes, and also around some of the other rocks and mud wall. This enclosure is coming together really nicely, and now there's only 2 things left to do before it's ready for our wombat. Next thing we have to do is add the enrichment, and we can quickly do that right now. And here it is, and now we only have to do one thing, and that's the plants, so let's get that done. First off, I'm adding the trees, as this is usually something you should do first when adding the plants. I want to make this enclosure seem overgrown and bushy, so there will be a lot of bushes, trees, and tall grass. I finished adding the trees, so I'm going to go around and add some smaller plants such as plantain lilies and nettle. I'm mostly placing these nettle around rocks, but I will come around and add them in other areas later on. I am now adding the bushes, and this is where the enclosure starts seeming overgrown. By adding white sage bushes, arrowwood bushes, and creosote bushes all around the enclosure, it helps make the enclosure pop and seem a lot more overgrown. We also can't forget about the bluestem grass, as this will help make it seem a lot more overgrown, as the grass has had lots of time to grow, and it's pretty common to see places with really tall overgrown grass in Australia. I am now adding the last final touches on the plants, and then head to where the wombat will have its preferred path, as animals like to have a preferred way to get around their enclosure, and usually it isn't as grown as the rest of their enclosure due to repeated stepping. And our wombat enclosure is officially complete, and it looks amazing! Oh wait, I think he's here. Our wombat has officially arrived into his new enclosure. We are only having 1 male wombat for now, and he seems to be a bit stressed with the new environment, but with our new head vet, Jill Murphy, keeping an eye on him, hopefully everything goes smoothly. We'd like to thank Crane & Co Constructions for this amazing looking enclosure, and we'd also like to thank the Gold Coast Wildlife Shelter for looking after the wombat in quarantine, and transferring one of their vets to help at the zoo. We are really grateful for the help that they do to get the zoo up and running, and we really are grateful for all the support and can't wait till we are able to explore other continents. With our newest edition of the zoo curiously exploring his new enclosure, and our staff preparing for what's next to come, we need to think of what animal will join the roster next. And to start is clearing out the land for its enclosure. With that, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, as it is greatly appreciated. And don't forget, name suggestions are always welcome. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Goodbye.